Is this it? No. That's the one.
It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
Hello and welcome to the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts. I'm Kat.
I'm Joe.
And today we are talking about the Studio Ghibli film When Marnie Was There.
As a part of, once again, we're doing Ghibli June and Ghibli July. We're doing it up, baby. A summer of Ghibli.
Ghibli Summer. This film came out in 2014 in Japan, 2015 in the US, and it's based off of the 1967 novel of the same name by Joan G. Robinson, a British children's author. Mm-hmm. Which makes me think that Studio Ghibli has a little bit of a preoccupation with British children's writers.
Yeah, seems that way.
Because we had Howl's Moving Castle, based off of a novel by an English novelist. And we had Secret Life of Arrietty, based on The Borrowers. And I think this film definitely has some feeling of The Borrowers, of Secret Life of Arrietty. In this, there's some parallels, and it's directed by the same director, who is Hiromasa Yonebayashi. Mm-hmm. Apparently, this is also the final work of Makiko Futaki, who was an animator who died May 2016. So it's last time that he was involved in a project. And then there was some kind of a rumor around like Studio Ghibli closing after this film was being made, but really it was kind of like a restructuring. They were taking a break because Miyazaki was finally retiring after threatening to do so many times.
Yeah, he's been threatening to retire since his first movie.
Yeah,
I'm going to do it this time.
And his last film was The Wind Rises.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't that after this?
Which I believe is after this. Yeah, I think he did, in fact, come back again. Oh, no, that was 2013. Okay, so it was a year before this came out. And that was when he was finally like, no, seriously, I'm going.
Guys, I'm not fucking around this time, okay?
And they're like, oh shit, we should probably think about how we're going to do Studio Ghibli without Miyazaki going forward.
Yeah, I just can't wait until he finds another children's book with airplanes or something. He's gonna be like, oh, you son of a bitch, you got me back in it.
So, like Secret World of Arrietty, this film has a kid being sent out to the countryside who's ill and kind of starts to discover some mysterious things that they start to look into. Anna is our main character, and she is very shy, very self-hating. In fact, it goes pretty far into a very sort of emo side of kids' lives.
Yeah, the top quote on IMDb for this movie, there's only 4 of them. And the top quote for this movie is Anna, the main character. And the top quote is, I hate myself.
Yep.
That classic When Marnie Was There line. I hate myself. When I think of this movie, I think...
I wanted this movie to be better. Because it was one that I hadn't seen of the sort of Studio Ghibli canon, and I had been excited to see it for a while, but saving it for the pod. It's one of the only modern ones I've seen, because I've seen most, if not all, of the Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki films, and the sort of new generation films I really haven't seen very much of at all. This is kind of like dipping my toe in, and I could see some of previous Ghibli films in this, like Secret World of Arrietty. There's also, little moments that felt kind of like Spirited Away. What else? I thought that there were just like little bits where, sometimes it's just a style of animation. Sometimes there was a moment in the story where it's like, oh, that kind of rings a bell,
Yeah.
But I don't get the hype. I know there's a lot of people who like this a lot. And I felt like this film failed on a couple of levels to actually hit home for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. And like I have to admit, during watching this movie, I dozed off a couple times. Not for very long, but it was like one of those like head nod situations, like, oh shit, oh okay. But I feel like it does also kind of remind me of Secret Life of Arrietty, because it also is a pretty limited cast as well. Like there's not a lot of characters, and it's very isolated to, 4 or 5 characters. Like Arrietty, there wasn't a lot of people. There weren't a lot of moving parts. This one, there's not a lot of people, not a lot of moving parts. But yeah, I'm very much with you in that I did not, I don't get the hype about this movie. Like, especially after watching some people review it afterwards and seeing some of the reviews written about it, I was just like, really?
I mean,
when Marnie
definitely
this. Okay. I mean, okay.
This definitely has.
It was nominated for the Academy Award.
That's true. That
Lost to Inside Out,
which it should have.
Yes.
Inside Out is a great film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to anybody who loves this movie. There are things about it that I'm sorry to those people. No,
it's an issue an apology.
Yeah. No, there are certain things that I liked, and I liked where this was going. I just think that it could have done better very early on, without having any previous knowledge about this film. I was like, I bet this is based off a novel, and it's partly because of the pacing. Is that frequently novel adaptations, you can tell with the style of storytelling with a novel, the way that it slows things down and adds some somewhat superfluous characters. Like I don't agree. I think this film actually has a ton of characters compared to Arrietty, which had like 7. This one has like, you see 20 people at a party and you learn like 5 of their names. And that happens a couple of times, but it's not as many as like Pompoko, that has characters everywhere all the time.
It's just not like bustling, like Spirited Away. There's all of
that's true.
All the stuff going on, and Kiki's Delivery Service. They're in a city. Like the stories take place in like these bustling, thriving, lively places, and this is not very lively. It's very isolated.
Yeah, it has moments. It has moments where it's kind of carrying the ball, and you're watching the ball and you're going, interesting, where is it going? And then it'll drop it and you just like watch it roll slowly across the floor.
Yeah.
And you're like, is it going to come up again?
While we were watching it, I was making a couple of predictions like, oh, this is what's going to happen. Oh, that's going to be that. That's going to play into this. And it doesn't at all.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then the actual mystery and the stories that are revealed and the stuff, like there's one part of the story that just comes from out of nowhere, I feel like, and I was just like, well, why did that need to be there? Why is this happening? And there's some things that Anna is mad about that I don't understand why she's mad about it, but she's, I guess, an emo kid, so whatever.
Yeah,
but
I'd like to talk about a couple of those things because I wasn't fully on board with how motivated some of her feelings were. And I think that, maybe if I was younger watching this, I would have been on board with her. And maybe as an adult watching, I'm like, I don't know. I think you're all right.
I mean, that could be. But I mean, we watched a review of an adult praising this movie, being like, you need to show this movie to your children. I was like, why? In case they're too happy? Like, in case they're enjoying life too much?
Yeah, so Anna is a foster kid.
Yes.
Which took me a little while to figure out.
12 years old.
She's 12 years old.
Which it took me until I just read it before we started recording.
And she has asthma and had an asthma attack at school, and a doctor is like, you should send her out to the countryside. So she's actually going out to and staying with her foster parents' relatives.
Yeah.
Out to this place.
And I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you because top quote number 4 on IMDb is from the doctor who is talking to Anna, and he says, and I quote, "You know, asthma can be stress-related sometimes." End quote. That famous
Riveting.
"when Marty was there" line.
Riveting stuff. Yeah.
Who's the managing IMDb page for this? It's so bad.
You know, and I guess, you know, as a foster kid, maybe it should just be obvious that she's going to be looking for clues to her identity or have some kind of identity crisis or want to know kind of where her family is. But that's not really set up. It's just kind of, you're just kind of expected to be like, well, she would though, I guess. Sure. And when she goes here, she meets a young girl, and they start to form a friendship, but there's things about this girl, Marnie, that are kind of mysterious and like, seems like maybe something supernatural is happening. And the film is just leaving you kind of, not really leaving you clues, but like starting to be like, guess what's going on? Guess what's going on? And I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't. And I also feel like, you know, we're not in spoilers, but like I feel like the resolution wraps up way too quickly.
So fast.
Way
there are
too
no
quickly.
clues. Clues to really tell you that that's where it's leading to. And there's a lot of people like online who are like, oh, and the ending just broke my heart. And as soon as it all came together, it all made so much sense. And that sense made me the saddest. And I was like,
Yeah.
I
just don't get what was so sad about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm noises.
Yeah. And we'll get more into that in spoilers, but you know, I don't think this film should be compared to Grave of the Fireflies, because I think Grave of the Fireflies is an incredible film.
Yeah.
And yes, I resent it for the amount of feelings it made me feel.
Yeah.
And I've, you know, every time I've watched it, it has broken my heart just completely into bits and pieces, but it is such an important film. And
well, yeah, because that one, there's like history, and it provides context to this enormous historical event and some of the tragedies that were happening during that historical event. And it gives you perspective of like, oh, all of this stuff that was going on back in the day was fucked up or whatever.
Yeah.
And it gives you a look into the life of some of the tragedy, the real life tragedy that was happening. It's a completely made up story, and I don't care. Like, there's no historical context to it. I don't care. I just didn't care about anybody.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there are some things that are interesting about it, and I think would have been fun if they had taken more artistic license and done something slightly different with it. Because there's just like some elements of the story that are really interesting, that are really good story points, but could be done very, very differently.
It could have went another place and been a better movie. Like I was watching it and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Where is this going? And then when it wraps up again so quickly, I was like, oh, that was kind of a dud.
Yeah. And I think, you know, again, I keep saying we'll talk about this more in spoilers, but I genuinely want to discuss how much more interesting this would be as a horror film.
Oh, yeah.
And what directors might have been able to take it to that place and made this super interesting. This is probably horrifying to somebody who just like straight up loved this movie. They just turned this podcast off. They're just like, who are these people?
Yeah, I could see this
who don't love art.
I could see this being a horror film in the vein of Los Orfanata.
La Orfanato.
Orfanato. The orphanage.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I was thinking. I was also kind of thinking about Magnetic Rose. And some elements of that, like.
Well, it's funny because when I got on the Wikipedia page for this, it describes the movie as a psychological drama.
Oh yeah, I saw that
too. And I was like,
too.
I've never seen a movie described as
I
that.
read that line and I went, there's a reason why you don't hear that very often. It's because, it's way more interesting. Psychological thriller.
Oh. Wait, I mean, I feel like there's like psychological dramas that people like, wouldn't you classify like, I've never seen it, but like The Time Traveler's Wife or something like that? Is that a psychological drama?
I guess.
Psychological rom-com?
Psychological rom-com.
Is Steins Gate a psychological?
Her is a psychological rom-com.
Is Steins Gate a psychological drama, you think?
That it could be.
But that's a thriller, though.
But there's thriller. Yeah, but there's thriller elements to it. And part of it is because when things get psychological, it gets scary.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because this film is supposed to be for children. It's based off a children's novel. So, maybe they're trying to stay true to the novelist's work. But the novelist died in 1988. So it's not like there was anybody around to be like, you're ruining my story.
Quality control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this film, like Grave of the Fireflies, is kind of joyless.
Oh, yeah. There is no levity at all in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's no jokes. It's one of those things where, like, two people will say something to each other and they'll laugh and you'll be like, that wasn't funny. But
yeah,
they're just kind of enjoying each other rather than it actually being funny.
It doesn't have any jokes. It's no levity in it, but it's not hitting you with the same emotions that Grave of the Fireflies does.
Yeah.
At least for me, anyway.
Not with that kind of gravity.
Yeah, like I just did not care. Like, yeah. And if I'm not going to care, at least have some fun with it, But I didn't even have any fun with it. I just watched something that I was like, oh, okay. Oh, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I do know.
I mean, even like the voice acting was fine, I guess. Like one of them is voiced by John C. Reilly, and Kat said it and I said it. Like he has such an immediately recognizable voice that I can't picture it. I just picture him in a booth. You
can't divorce it from him.
Yeah.
You just immediately see his face.
Yeah. I think Haley Steinfeld is the main character, Anna.
Yeah, that's right.
And then
apparently Kathy Bates plays a part.
Apparently Gina Davis is in it too.
Yeah, Gina Davis is Yoriko, who is the foster mom.
Okay. Like why waste a casting of Gina Davis on the foster mom?
It's a great question.
I mean, the foster mom, this isn't a spoiler, I feel like, but she's barely in it.
Yeah. Yeah, she bookends it,
Yeah.
It's
confusing. That's a sweet paycheck for Gina Davis.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they get her in for one day.
Yeah, I mean, and who did Kathy Bates? Because I remember looking at this and I was like, is Kathy Bates the main like mother figure in this? And she's not. I think that she's in it for like 3 lines or something.
Yeah, I think she plays the mom of a girl that Anna meets when she goes to this new town.
It's like, why wait? I could fucking do that.
Which
why waste a casting?
Which, by the way, unlike it is the girl's mom. Unlike a lot of the other films that have been adapted from novels by Ghibli, this is sort of reset in Japan. So they took at least that license. They took it out of England.
Okay.
And they made it in Japan. But that seems to be as far as they wanted to go with making things really different. Kathy Bates plays Mrs. Kadoya, who is the mother of a girl that Anna meets and has some interactions with.
Yeah. That girl is barely in it too.
Yeah, I meant to talk about that because that girl is kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's an interesting note about the soundtrack is that the person who wrote the main theme for this movie wrote the song and then was feeling like it was too emotional and too personal for her to release on her own.
Oh.
But then she read When Marnie Was There, the original book, and felt like she really identified with the character. So when Studio Ghibli was making the movie, she was like, I would love for this to be a part of the movie. And they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And that's the main theme of the movie. Some lady named Priscilla Ahn, I think.
That is interesting.
But I didn't take note of the song. I don't know anything about it. I think it's called, what's it called? The Fire Inside Me or something. No, I'm Fine on the Inside or something like that.
Oh.
It should have been the theme for Inside Out.
Yeah, I mean, I did think that. Oh, sorry, I just noticed that Catherine O'Hara was in this as well. It's a Beetlejuice. What do you call it? Reunion. Wait, was Gina Davis in Beetlejuice? Anyway, they've been in movies together.
Sure.
Right. I thought this was really beautifully animated.
I didn't. There were parts where like the CGI was so bad in it, and it looked very awful compared to what was in the foreground. Like I specifically remember a scene where Anna, it's just like a close-up of her face and it's zooming in on her eyes, and in the background is this choppy, awful CGI grass. Like that. I don't know why Ghibli, sometimes they'll just throw a scene of CGI like wheat or grass or tall flowers or something.
That seems to be super common in all anime, though.
Yeah, but it looks bad.
It does look bad.
It looks bad.
I mean, I also think CGI doors look bad, and I think CGI cars look bad. I just think they always stand out, and it looks weird. But I thought that the hand-drawn stuff looked really nice. I thought the characters moved really beautifully. I thought the way water was animated, it was so beautiful. Some of the close-ups on water in the marsh, I was just like, wow, I've never seen water animated like that, but it's so illustrative, and you can it looks wet. And
maybe I just take Studio Ghibli's excellence in animation for granted, or like,
yeah, it's possible.
You know what I mean? Where it's just like I expect
level,
this from them.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I see it, I'm just like, yeah, this is Ghibli. And then if there's anything that stands out, I'm like, no, this sucks.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and it's never going to be like Makoto Shinkai. Like, it's never going to be like so incredibly crazy, beautiful. And unless you get those like really visually fantastic films, like, some moments in Princess Mononoke in the sort of Spirit Forest or something where there's just like so much going on and it's really gorgeous. But a lot of this is kind of slice of life in a sense, with a mystery that, rather than like building to a place where you can kind of guess what's going on, just dumps all of the answers on you at the end. And,
and once it dumps all the answers on you, it's not like you could look back and be like, oh, I could see how, that's what that was leading to, or that's what that was leading to, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just like, here's all of the answers.
I know.
Does that make you feel bad?
Yeah, it was a lot like that. Oh man. How do you feel now that you've heard that?
How do you feel? How does that make you feel? That you understand everything that you were watching for an hour and a half. Does that make you feel bad? Or are you soulless? Guess I'm soulless.
Yeah. Oh, I had something and I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. That was very funny. Oh, and there's so many times in something that's kind of supernatural that only one person's really experiencing that can lead to humorous moments and or any consequences.
Yeah.
And this one doesn't. And there's just a lot of opportunities lost there, I think.
Agreed. I agree with you.
Thank you. How amped are you to talk about this movie, Joe?
I think you can tell in the energy in my voice. Like, I shotgunned a Mountain Dew before this because I was like, I need something. I need something to get me jazzed about talking about this movie, and it ain't doing it. Not very amped. How about you?
I have some questions for you that I'm amped to ask.
Yeah. It's not even that it's like a hilariously bad movie. Like, this is just such nothing that it's going to be hard for me to like keep the energy,
So strap in, folks.
Yeah. We ain't got the juice tonight, baby.
I do. I'm going to bring the juice.
Okay,
Joe.
you got the juice.
I got the juice. I'll bring the juice sad at you.
Okay. Okay. Didn't know it was going to be that kind of pod.
You ready to spoil this?
Oh, yeah, sure.
They wouldn't spoil this, right? Oh, they can't spoil this. Please
right?
Don't spoiler talk. Spoiler talk. Anime movie podcast. Spoiler talk.
So, I mean, Secret World of Arietti, comes up immediately because of somebody who's kind of, sickly going out to the countryside and then wanders and finds something kind of mysterious. And we have Anna sort of being constantly drawn to this sort of mansion that's on the marsh, and she comes up to it. It's dilapidated, and she goes up to the windows. She can see that there's sort of linen covering furniture that's kind of still there, but it looks like it hasn't been inhabited in many years, and it's kind of 1920s 1930s style house. English style, not Japanese style.
Very like Great Gatsby, I feel like.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
one scene later on.
Yeah. And so she realizes that the tide comes in the evening, and suddenly she's, instead of walking into a marsh, she's walking into ocean. And so she takes a step back, isn't sure what to do. And it reminded me a lot of Spirited Away, just having that moment where she's suddenly stuck in this other world. And when we keep coming back to this mansion, we see that it's filled with people, and it's filled with what feels like memories or spirits or something going on. And later on, she sees the girl Marnie up in the window and is wondering who she is or why she's in this house that's obviously abandoned. So very quickly, the movie is definitely telling you that what you're seeing is supernatural, or it's either spirits, ghosts, magic, something. It's not trying to make you think that Marnie's real to begin with. You're already kind of tipped off.
Yeah, the first glimpse that you get of Marnie is, so once Anna is like kind of stuck in that high tide, she's stuck at the house. A local fisherman named Toichi, who is kind of a mute, he like rows his boat up to the house and he just looks at Anna. He kind of shakes his head disapprovingly. It's like, what are you doing here? She gets in the boat.
But with his eyes.
Yeah. She gets in the boat. They start rowing away. And then Anna looks back and she can see Marnie getting her hair brushed by Nan, I think is her name.
The grandma.
Yeah, the grandma. And she's like, wait a minute, I was just there. That is definitely an abandoned house. What the hell's going on here? And so that after that moment, she's kind of like, I need to investigate this a bit more. This is mysterious. And that's where the movie really kicks off.
Yeah, and they've built this thing into the story where Anna is an artist. I don't think she is in the novel. I think that was a Studio Ghibli edition as well. Maybe because all the artists have all at some point hated themselves and had asthma. I don't know, but they found that very relatable. So she's like sketching the house, and later like is sketching Marnie, and Marnie's built up to seem like she has just this golden life.
Yeah.
This Great Gatsby life. There's 1920s roaring parties, and she seems to just have these beautiful dresses, and they're maids, and gets her hair brushed for her, and but she's also this sort of like bright light and sort of sunshiny person, which is very unlike Anna. And part of the reason why Anna is kind of like attracted to her, because they decided, I guess Miyazaki apparently wasn't really into the idea of keeping Marnie as being a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, doll-like figure, very English little girl. But everybody else was like, go retire.
Shut up. You were tired. You said you're done. Sit down, old man. Go fly a plane. Get out of here.
But they thought it would add to people's interest in seeing the movie, and
an English audience, English-speaking audience,
and also not because of just the exoticism of it, and seeing the two figures on the poster, one that looks like they might be Japanese and one who's not, and where that would go, and yeah.
Well, Anna does have blue eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Marnie still. Like, who are you talking about that's Japanese looking?
I mean, I think Anna is more Japanese looking than Marnie is.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, but they very specifically say, "Oh my God, look, that's crazy! Look, it looks like she almost has blue eyes."
Yeah.
When they talk about Anna, and so I think it's weird that when you look up really close, her eyes are a little bit blue, and that was like a novelty.
Yeah.
For the kids in this town, and what is, oh God, the girl's name who the daughter of Mrs. Kadoya, played by Kathy Bates.
Minnie Kadoya?
It's Nobuko.
Okay.
Nobuko. So Nobuko is this very overweight girl who's very curious about Anna. And I don't really understand what her role is in this film.
Yeah, I don't get the purpose of her. She serves no purpose whatsoever in my mind. They introduce her as like, she's also kind of like rambunctious and like gregarious, of just like getting everybody, she's loud and brash and stuff for some parts of it, and then other parts of it she's not, and she's just curious and she's just asking questions, and she's like, oh, I want to be friends. But like the scene, like we see a scene with her, the first time we see her, she's looking at Anna like mail a letter, and she's like, Mom, who is that girl? Because she's new in town or whatever. And then the next time we see her, she's heading up some like trash picking thing and yelling at everybody like, you all better pick all this trash up. You all better do it. And you better report back to me. And I was like, is this woman 45 or 12? I don't know what's going on.
And I do think that's part of like her character. You kind of think that she is this kind of like maybe spoiled only child who likes to boss other kids around, but is also definitely going to run for class president, as soon as the opportunity is available. And she's going to, run charity organizations and things. But I kind of feel like in this film, she serves to make Anna feel unlikable.
Yeah.
Because Anna is so unkind to her. And I understand that, Anna's getting triggered in some way, and is unable to communicate, please stop, or please, I need space. Like there's some things that I need, and you are currently like invading in all of those things, and I'm about to snap. But the way she snapped seemed so unlikely. It was out of character, because suddenly, she goes like, stop it, you fat pig, or something.
Yeah. So they're at some kind of festival, and you're supposed to write a wish on this little piece of paper and hang it up in a tree, and it's supposed to help it make it come true or whatever. And what Anna wishes for is a normal life, and she's walking over to put it on the tree, and Nobuko grabs it, and she's like, oh, I'll help put it up. What'd you wish for? And she reads her wish. She goes, you want a normal life? What does that mean? And then Anna, just furious, can't even look at her. She's like, don't touch my wish, you fat pig. And Nobuko is like, what the fuck you? And then immediately,
I mean, rightly so. I like, she shouldn't have touched her wish. I think that's the wish is a private thing, and that's overstepping some bounds. But yeah, it definitely,
but then
too far.
Nobuko's like, now I know why you want a normal life. It's because you're so mean or whatever.
You're a bitch.
Yeah, you're a fucking a-hole. Yeah. And then after that sentence, she goes, you know what? Let's forget about this. Let's just be friends. And I'll hang up your wish. And then Anna's like, just runs off.
Yeah, she's like, no, never.
Yeah. It's like, what's happening?
Never friends with you.
Like, I didn't get the purpose of that, because then it doesn't play into anything later. Does it?
Yeah, I thought she was interesting as a character, because
Nobuko?
I thought that like there are girls like that. There are definitely people who rub you the wrong way, who are so well meaning, and and I think that that's an interesting thing to explore, but it went nowhere. And you read any synopsis of this film, even spoiler synopsis, she's not mentioned in a lot of them, you know, for good reason. Because it doesn't really come of anything. It kind of motivates her to go running off, and then that's when she first meets Marnie. And there's a weird message in this film about like, don't be friends with the ugly fat girl, be friends with the beautiful blonde haired blue eyed girl instead, who's mysterious and interesting and wears pretty dresses.
I think that's a little bit of a stretch there. But I think the big payoff for this moment is later on, the mom, Nobuko's mom, Kathy Bates, she goes up to the guardians of Anna for the summer, and she's like, your daughter, or Anna called my daughter a fat pig, and what are you going to do about it? And the guardians are just like, I don't believe that. And then she's like, well, fuck you. And the mom, Kathy Bates, walks away, and Anna overhears this, and she walks up to her guardians, and the guardians are like, did you hear that? You called her a fat pig? That was a little harsh. Let's eat some dinner.
Yeah.
What? No reprimanding at all? Like nothing?
So bizarre.
And then that's it. Like, I mean, at the end of the movie, she sees Nobuko one more time, and she's like, I might come back next summer and let's be friends. And it's like, who gives a shit?
Yeah. I think they should have brought her in more or not at all.
Yeah.
And they also like kept building up to them meeting, with that, watching her mail a letter and all of that. It felt like it was going to build up to so much more. And it never did. So then we go into these bouts of Anna falling asleep and dreaming about being in the marsh and seeing Marnie, and then actually kind of like making excuses to go out and to try to find her and meet up with her and watch their friendship build very quickly into a Thelma and Louise, I would die for you kind of relationship between these two girls. And sometimes they'll suddenly wake up out of it, or suddenly be in a different place, and it's and part of that's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, we get it, this isn't actually happening, or there's something weird going on here. But one thing that I kind of wanted to ask you about is, because I mentioned earlier that Marnie seems to be living in the lap of luxury. Mm-hmm. And then both girls sort of divulge to each other their kind of hardships, what makes them really sad. And I felt like Marnie's story was heartbreaking. Like, to me, like, that little girl is having a rough life. Like, mm-hmm. That is a rough way to grow up, just completely isolated. Parents are more interested in partying and traveling. And so they leave her behind all the time. And she is bullied by the maids there. And her grandmother is very strict and very unkind. Mm-hmm. And she likes to brag about her parents and talk about how great they are and how beautiful and how creative and all these things. But it's really because she's so sad that they're never there, and she's so excited to see them, but they come so infrequently. And there was something about that just like pulled at my heartstrings a little bit, because I was just like, this little girl is so full of sunshine and seems to like to go and dance in the marsh and carefree in her dresses, but the grandmother who was brushing her hair was brushing it too hard. And it's that sort of subtle abuse that you can't really speak up against, because if you said, like, you're hurting me, and it's like, oh, you're so ungrateful, like, I'm I didn't have somebody to brush my hair. And so you're kind of being like gaslit in the moment, and I could just like feel that for her, and the isolation, and the threatening to be pulled up to the silo and locked in the silo as a kid as well. I was just like, oh God, I feel that sucks. And then you hear Anna's story, and I was like, I don't feel that bad. I don't like.
What's your question?
My question is.
It's like,
my question is, who do you think has it worse? And could you tell us what Anna's sadnesses are?
I mean, Anna's sadness is that she has asthma and she is a foster child, which definitely comes with its own set of baggage. And I think that we should mention that like being a foster kid, probably not easy. I know that there's some foster kids that like bounce around from different houses, but it seems like Anna is in like at least a stable place where she's in the same spot all the time with the same foster parents,
and has been the entire time that she's been in the system, so to speak.
Yeah. And that is about it for her hardships. Like, she discovers that her foster parents get paid to look after her, and she's like, what the fuck, you get paid? That's a number 3 top quote on IMDb is, I cost money or something. It's something like that. And I was like, but yeah, I mean, why? It doesn't seem like her foster parents are abusive to her or anything. It seems like she's in a kind of loving home.
She even says that to Marnie. She's even like, they're very good to me, but obviously the love is fake because I found a check and they've never told me about it, and they're only hiding it because they obviously don't love me.
Yeah, I mean, it's very odd to jump to that conclusion. And it really does like affect her emotions. She's like, they're only keeping me around because they're getting paid. But like, dude, if someone's getting paid to treat me nicely and they are treating me nicely, I don't give a shit.
I mean, and maybe, you know.
And who are you to go snooping around in my private files, Anna? She is the ungrateful a-hole.
I mean, you know, and maybe it's the adult perspective playing into this, but to me, it's like, you know, how much money would you have to get to raise a child where it actually became profitable, where it didn't just become money that you could use to help raise that child?
Yeah, and we don't know anything about her foster parents' like work situation. Maybe they're like disabled or like can't get a good job to afford to do it. But they're really
good people and want to raise her.
They want Anna. Like, that's the thing, is like they want to raise her and they want her in their lives. And so they might just need that extra help. And then Anna takes it as like, no, you only want me around because you're getting paid. Fuck you guys.
Right.
What? I mean, Marnie definitely is a lot more tragic. Like, that story of like wanting her parents' love and attention and never really getting it, and then being left with the maids who bully her and the grandma who abuses her. Yeah, obviously, like, that's so much more traumatic than, and then fucking Anna's like, yeah, well, my foster parents love me, but they get paid. I have a hard time breathing. There's medical advances to help with that, though. So yeah, we're like the same.
Yeah, I just didn't think it was comparable. Just her, like, just even Marnie's like trying to make it seem okay and seem good and sunny, and bragging about all the amazing places that her parents must be going, when in fact it's this deep, deep sadness of being abandoned constantly, you know? And yeah, I just, when they were sharing that with each other, I was just like, these just aren't comparable. Yeah. This is just not comparable in my mind. And yeah, I've never been a foster kid. You know, but to me, the idea of foster kid, what's so tragic about it is the being bounced around house to house, being part of the system, and not really having a loving, stable, supportive network. That you know, and that can be really, really challenging to try and build a foundation for your life and you know, a stably emotional life. But that's not this situation, you know. This is very different.
Yeah, and I also can't relate to, and I won't ever know, the like, who are my actual parents mystery, which is something that comes with a lot of baggage as well, I guess. But yeah, I just think that I just didn't care about Anna's problems as much as Marnie's.
Yeah.
And then I thought I made up a whole different story for Marnie in my head that I kept predicting, because throughout Anna's flashbacks of her childhood, she's holding a doll that looks exactly like Marnie.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Marnie's the doll.
And I remember like grabbing Joe and being like, wait, can you see that? She's not blinking. Marnie's not blinking. And then we were both like, she's a doll.
Yeah. And then we saw her blink.
We were going into all these like theories. Yeah.
And then we saw her blink and we're like, okay, so maybe the doll can blink. Maybe it's a blinky doll, like the ones that you like, if you tilt it, it blinks. But I mean, Marnie does have some very creepy doll-like facial expressions. There's one scene where Anna and Marnie are dancing because Marnie's a part of this like flashback party. And Anna's a guest or something, but she's playing the role of the boy that Marnie was in love with. Who the fuck knows? That was a little confusing for me. But they're dancing in the moonlight, and Marnie has this blank, expressionless face, and it's just like swaying so creepily, and it was very frightening.
Yes, and I wanna talk for a second about the Anna taking on the role of this boy in these memories that are going on. But then I want to come back to the creepiness factor, because I want to talk about why this would be such a great horror film.
Yeah.
But this is a concept that I kind of loved about this film, which was that we have this family that moves into the house. And so it's weirder for Anna to go up to it because it's now inhabited.
Yeah.
And this girl Sayaka starts getting interested in Anna and shows her a diary that she found, and it's Marnie's diary. And when she's reading the pages, she's reading about all the things that she's experienced with the ghost of Marnie. And then we don't see Marnie for a little while. And then when they see each other again, they have this whole experience. And Sayaka's like, I found these missing pages that had been ripped out of the diary. And the missing pages then have the event that was just taking place.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool, because you're in the memories of this person, that the idea is that there's a haunting here, and the memories that really stick out that end up being replayed, and that this person, Anna, coming into it becomes a part of, are the memories that were also written about. So it's probably these, big foundational moments that were important to this person. And I loved the idea of like having been through that event and then seeing that was written about in the diary. I was like, oh, that's so interesting and cool. And again, has a big creepy factor.
Yeah. No, it is interesting and cool. But what did you think of the point of Anna playing the role of the boy that Marnie was in love with?
I don't think it matters so much about playing, what part she's playing, because she also played a flower girl as part of that memory as well.
Yeah,
but I think
that's true.
I think it's just
about that.
walking into the ghost memories of another person, and you're just given a role.
Yeah.
And it's like walking into somebody's dream, and you just become the waiter or something,
Yeah.
except that it's usually whatever the focus was. So the focus is on this flower girl that she's bringing into the house, focuses on dancing with this boy, so whatever allows her to kind of be in connection with Marnie as part of the scene is kind of like the role that she kind of seems to take on.
Okay.
For a moment she seems to, it's almost like she's like one of the maids, like dragging Marnie up the hill towards the silo. And then she switches and is like, oh wait, you're the boy I love. And she's like, no, I'm not. And he's like, oh wait, Anna?
Yeah. Yeah, then she like would just randomly get knocked out and lose consciousness and then wake up and Marnie's gone or something. And it was like they were trying to do a Satoshi Kon thing, but just didn't know how to pull it off or something. Because they were trying to play with what's real, what isn't real. And it's like, obviously we know that Marnie and her like memories aren't real, because number one, everybody's wearing different clothes. Like it's very obvious that Anna stands out in this crowd because she's wearing like Bermuda shorts and stuff.
Yeah, and nobody's picking up on it or noticing. So they're obviously not conscious or real. This is a memory.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't really matter what you do, you're not really being interacted with.
Yeah, but then when they do the thing where like Anna loses consciousness and then Marnie disappears and everything goes back to how it is at present day, I was like, what? And then sometimes when she does get knocked out, she'll wake up and Marnie will be there still or something. It was very, it could have been something, but it seemed like they just didn't know how to pull it off. Or they were.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And and maybe part of it's like wanting to like dip their toe into it, but then they don't want it to make it too scary because they want it to be for children. But I think they should have leaned into that. And I think that would have been so interesting to see if this had been directed by Satoshi Kon, if it did have that sort of thriller feel to it, especially because, like she wakes up in these like dangerous situations. Here's this 12-year-old girl who's losing consciousness and experiencing almost like a hallucinogenic, different reality. And she's ending up in the real world in these dangerous situations where she is asleep in the rain on the side of a road and could easily get run over by a car. And a car sees her, stops, pulls her unconscious body with all these like scratches and dirt and stuff on her, into the car. And then she gets delivered back to the foster parents' relatives, who then take her inside and never have a conversation with her about it. And they find her in other concerning places.
Yeah.
And never acknowledge it or acknowledge how scary or dangerous any of that is.
Yeah, I mean, she was on the side of the road. She's like in the middle of the woods. Yeah. She's right by the high tide lake or marsh or whatever.
Yeah, what if she woke up and she was face down?
Yeah.
And was drowning.
Yeah, and then she wakes up again in like an abandoned silo when there's a thunderstorm and the silo is like all rickety and
filling up with water.
It's just like, doesn't anyone have any concern for this girl and her conscious? Like, she's concussed.
For her well-being?
She's very clearly not doing well. Like, we need to address this, but no one does.
No, and
they just keep finding her on the side. They're like, "Oh, there you are. Okay, kids will be kids."
Yeah,
like, what?
Exactly.
I've never once woken up on the side, covered in dirt and bruises, and lost my shoes. Like, even when she lost her shoes, they're like, "We got other shoes."
Yeah, what the fuck? Exactly. That's so true. They were like, "Oh, our daughter, she left shoes in the attic like before she went to college. She could probably fit into those shoes." And and then and she goes and she finds her shoe that's just sitting up on a pole. But yeah, it's all very, very casual, and it's like they're enabling a blackout drunk. They're like, "Oh, honey, we can replace your shoes. Don't even worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Keep having cool adventures, though.
Here's some Gatorade.
But don't tell us about them."
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any questions.
I don't need to know what you're up to.
It's so strange. And I think part of it's just kind of like trying to undercut any sense of danger all the time. Because they're pointing out like, "Oh, this is an unusual place to find somebody." But yeah, I mean, even the people who picked her up in that car should have come in and been like, "We'd like to have a conversation about this."
Look, I know that this isn't your full-time thing looking after you have a daughter though. What if is this how you treat your actual daughter? You've gone through this before.
Oh God. But imagine if they leaned into how terrifying that is, or let her like wake up face down in the marsh and be gasping and needing some rescuing and getting in trouble and being put into her room and being locked up and being like, you're a danger to yourself, you can't leave this room, and then escaping to go see Marnie anyway. And
or even having some resentment towards Marnie, like, why do you keep leaving me in these dangerous situations? Like, that would give her a purpose to like keep seeking out Marnie, as opposed to just, I'm curious about this.
I mean, they did have one scene like that.
They did, like towards the end, and then Marnie's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I forgive you. Fuck off.
Because we'll love each other forever. But then Marnie's like a second later. And also, bye.
Yeah.
I have to go. Yeah. So, I mean, and it turns out that Marnie is the grandmother of Anna. And so it's like, oh, she accidentally went to this, was drawn to this place that happens to be a connection to her family roots. And so, and I can't remember if they explain if that's how Yoriko ended up with Anna in the first place, is because she had a connection to the place where Marnie grew up. And I guess, I don't know. But, and there's this whole very, very tragic story about the rest of Marnie's life that is very sad. And when she said that she had to go, I kind of thought it was like, we've run out of memories, because I thought like we've basically reached the end of the diary and that something terrible had happened to Marnie, that she had died in that silo.
Yeah.
And then there was going to be some other mystery that was going to come out of that. And Anna was going to help solve it or resolve it and kind of give peace to this little girl who couldn't leave this place because of this terrible thing that had happened. But instead, there's no real reason why she has to go.
Yeah.
Because you find out later that, she ends up, marrying that sweetheart of hers. And they leave the town and they have a baby. But it means that she was in that town for many more years.
Yeah.
Past the time of her saying that she just needed to go.
You know why she needed to go? The scriptwriter looked at its script and was like, oh, fuck, we're about like 130 pages in. I gotta fucking wrap this shit up. How do I do? Just have some mysterious painter lady explain the entire story of Marnie's life, and that works, right? It's like, well, who is this mysterious painter lady? I don't know. She was fucking like some Marnie's friend or some bullshit. I don't know. Just throw her in there. Hint at her earlier on in the script. It's like,
and I totally even forgot to mention, like, Anna's, has been sketching Marnie. And Hisako, sees, I guess, maybe there's this moment where Anna's like, I'll never show my sketches to anybody because I'm really bad, when she's actually very, very good.
Yeah.
And it seems like Hisako is the first person that she wants to share with, wants to show.
Yeah, she has the kindred spirit of art.
Yeah. And so, she's making a connection. Cool. And she says, and Hisako says to Anna that the sketches of Marnie look like somebody that she knew when she was very young. And then later on, Sayaka, the girl who had moved into the house with her family, finds Anna and is like, look, I found another thing. And it's like a painting. And on the back of it, it says Hisako on it. So then they're like, oh, we need to go get the full story from Hisako, who, very conveniently
just drops every detail of Marnie's life. Well, let me tell you what happened with Marnie, her childhood was all glitz and glamour from the outside, you'd think, but she was being bullied and abused and she wanted her parents' attention. So she left town with this hot young stud and they had a baby, and then something happened to the hot young stud. I guess he died or something. He died
suddenly of an illness.
Yeah.
And she couldn't handle it.
She wasn't equipped to raise a daughter, and her daughter resented her for it. So the daughter was like, fuck you, Mom, I'm leaving town. And,
on a motorcycle.
Yeah, with another hot young stud. and that daughter. And
the hot young stud cycle continued.
And so I think her daughter's name was Emily.
Yeah.
Emily and her hot young stud had a baby, and that takes us up to present day.
Oh, yeah, and then the hot young stud and Emily get into a fatal car crash.
Yeah. And then they had to give that baby up for adoption, but Marnie.
But first it went to Marnie.
Yeah, first went to Marnie, and Marnie was like, oh, this shit again? I'm not equipped to deal with this even more. I'm an old lady now.
And she's getting ill, and and they're basically like, she couldn't handle the death of her hot young stud, so she goes to a sanatorium, checks herself in, sends her kid to boarding school, and then she really can't handle the death of her only daughter, who she didn't have a very close relationship with, and that killed her. She died of the sad.
She died of a broken heart, just like Anakin Skywalker's love of his life or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Revenge of the Sith.
That's right.
And then
so I guess they're trying to say like that Anna did have some connection with Marnie and has vague memories of her as an older lady, played by Catherine O'Hara when she's an old lady. And that's why she was drawn to the house, and that's why they had such a close friendship in her sort of like ghost form.
Yeah, I mean before that, like Hisako is telling her the story, and she's like, "Yeah, that's all I really know about Marnie. She died.
That's all I know about Marnie. Every detail of her life."
Yeah, and then Anna goes back to the Guardians' place that Oiwas, I think their names are. And her foster parent is there, and she's like, "All right, I'm coming back to take you from back to the city. Summer's over.
Summer's over, yeah.
Summer's over. You're coming back home. Also, I didn't tell you this, but I do get paid to look after you. Also, I found this picture of the Marsh house from your files from when we first adopted you, and it's the same Marsh house. And on the back of it, it says Marnie." And I think that's where you came from. That's probably your grandmother.
Yeah, it really was. It really was like page 130 or whatever that this the screenplay got screenwriter, adapter, screenwriter,
the writer.
Sure, whatever. The writer.
Movie writer.
Let's take that from the top. It really was like you were saying that on page 130, the screenwriter was like, "I've got to finish this movie.
Yeah.
I forgot. This movie has to end."
Yeah, kids don't have that long of an attention span.
And so just all of these, just like, let's just wrap everything up and let's try to do it in this really short space of time. Which, like I get that sometimes that can happen in like a horror film too. That you get the sort of explanation of whatever the psychological thing is happening, and it kind of comes all at once. But then with that information, you move forward and you do something with it. And so there's more time to kind of like get more details about it. You don't have to just have it in this one package. And then, yeah, I mean,
Or you could look back, like once everything is revealed, you can look back and be like, "Oh, that was the clue as to why X was happening."
Yeah.
Like, once it's revealed that Marnie was Anna's grandmother, you couldn't go back and watch this movie and be like, look for the clues of how you could tell, because there are no clues.
Correct.
Aside from, and this is from IMDb, you could tell that there was a little bit of a family resemblance between Marnie and Anna because they both had blue eyes.
I see.
This is according to IMDb.
Well, they did very specifically point out that Anna's eyes were blue when you looked closely.
I guess that's the only clue, but you know who else has blue eyes? Loads of people.
Not in Japan. Maybe in Japan that would have been a big clue.
Yeah, potentially. But, I mean, they wrapped it up way too quickly.
Yeah.
And the payoff wasn't anything that I cared about. And also, why did the foster mom feel the need to tell Anna at that point, "Hey, we get paid"?
Yeah, I was confused about that too. And she didn't even say like, "Hey, while you were away in the summer, we were getting checks and you weren't there. And I just want to tell you that I've put that money away. We're going to put it into a fund for you for college. And here's the reason why we get that." And that might have been like a motivation to be like, "Hey, that's right. I've never thought to even tell you about this.
Yeah.
But, you're old enough now to understand how some of this works. Like, we need money to help us take care of you because, there's these costs and whatever. And at some point you should know that money is coming in. But even the line where she was like, we wanted to hide it from you for this reason. And I was like, why even use that kind of language? That was so strange.
Yeah.
And then Anna was like, "Don't even worry about it. I'm over it now because I found out Marnie was my grandma." I was like, why are you over it now? I mean, like, why was it a thing for you in the first place? But also,
this was your biggest trauma that you confessed to Marnie. Like, why are you so easily just like, that's a thing of the past? But I guess she was like, I heard about Marnie and her shitty ass parents. At least I got you.
Like, oh yeah. I mean, I thought we could really relate on the childhood level. And then I found out about the rest of her life, and I was like, actually, you know what? I'm pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
You know what? Keep them checks coming, baby. I don't really even give a shit.
And then, you know, like, we have this like, full story arc or character arc, because then Anna refers to Yoriko as her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand the beginning of the film when Anna is with the doctor, and she's like, oh, your mother's going to be here in a second. And then she goes, mother? And I was like, what's happening?
Mm.
Why did she say? And I realized that that's the moment where you're supposed to understand that that's not her mom. But that is not what made it clear to me.
We also, as usual, watched the dubbed version, so maybe there is some kind of lost in translation thing.
Sure.
Maybe things are said better in that, but yeah, I mean, that ending was just way too quick. The things get resolved way too quick and out of nowhere. Like, it really just blew my mind how the foster mom felt the need to tell her about the payments in that moment.
It was really bizarre.
It was out of nowhere. It made no sense for her to be like, hey, guess what? Also, this is happening. Like, it would have been something too if Anna like found out about it and like told her, like, oh, you don't care about me, you'll just get checks or whatever but it was like a secret that Anna was harboring.
I think also it would have been interesting if Anna had been sent to stay with some of her own relatives. You know, like
an
not
unknown thing.
Yeah, like not Yuriko's relatives.
Yeah.
But like, so there was some kind of a connection where Yuriko knew that she was sending Anna on kind of a quest to find her roots, or to where it was some, even if Anna didn't know about it, it'd be nice if like the audience kind of knew, because that might also again hint a little bit that this might have been an ancestor, and and this is a story about her finding her roots and making a you know, female friendship connection. You know, I appreciate this you know, film didn't do any kind of love interest thing, that this was about female friendship, and that's not all that common.
I did see something like if you Google when Marnie was there, like you know how Google has like that predicted search or whatever. I think the fourth one is when Marnie was there LGBTQ T. I forget how many letters.
Alphabet Mafia.
Yeah. But
I say Alphabet Mafia lovingly.
Yeah. But maybe there is some kind of essays, because Anna does inhabit the form of the love interest for Marnie.
Very true. Yeah. And there are a lot of moments that feel very romantic.
Yeah. So maybe
and I didn't know if I was reading too much into that.
Yeah, I don't think that I was either, but maybe, I mean, obviously certain people have to have felt that way.
There's easily a lesbian reading to this film.
Yeah, I could see
a queer reading for sure.
Yeah, you know, fucking Anna's got that short haircut. And
oh my god.
I kid. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to chat about before we crank the amps? You got any last thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I think I just wanted to reiterate how much I'd love to see this as a horror film. Because I think there's so many things about this that are very scary that they undercut in a way to make it the least scary. And I think that was possibly on purpose to make this a more appropriate film for children. But there's a lot of missed opportunity to have a much bigger impact by leaning into some of those creepy things and some of those scary things. And I think that, you know, maybe this is about not being afraid, because Anna is so in her shell that, you know, it's about how she's able to open up and start to be less afraid of the world. So maybe it's kind of counterintuitive for storytelling in that way. But hear me out. It would just be so cool.
You know what movie I think that you would enjoy was a recent movie called Last Night in Soho, where it is a very similar story to this, and it is a horror movie.
Oh.
There is a mystery.
How recent?
I think it came out like last summer.
Okay.
Maybe. But it's about a girl who is like a fashion designer, so she's an artist. And when she goes to sleep at night, she dreams of this other woman, and she inhabits this other woman's life. And she's going around seeing how this other woman lived and the decisions that she was making. And she was like, I feel like this is all real. And then starts to blur the lines of reality and what's an actual memory, if she's like just actually dreaming, or if all of this is real and she's reliving something that happened in this like haunted house or whatever. I think the ending is not that great, but it was such an interesting concept for a movie, and it is exactly what you're looking for. So,
did you see it in theaters?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an Edgar Wright movie.
Have you seen the recutting of Mary Poppins into a trailer for a horror film?
No, but that sounds awesome. I love when people do that.
It's pretty great, and I kind of want to do that with this movie.
Yeah, we should totally do it. Just that scene of her and Marnie dancing and that blinkless, soulless eyes.
Oh, and her waking up like just on the road,
yeah,
covered in scratches and being dragged
when
into
Marnie
a car.
Was there.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do that.
Absolutely. Look out for that YouTube clip. It's coming this summer.
This summer, you think Marnie's there, but she's not. I hate myself. Follow Anna. It costs money to look after me.
Oh, God.
As she goes on an asthmatic adventure. You know, asthma can be caused by stress sometimes. And then Marnie's also like, all of our meetings need to be secret.
Yeah.
As well.
And that's super creepy as well.
Yeah. Like, why can't I tell anybody about you? Because this summer.
But you know what? Nobody ever asked. And that's what's so strange about this movie is that, like, usually you'd give somebody an opportunity to be confronted and to be lying about something, or to have to hide it and that becoming
Sayaka thinks that Anna is Marnie for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about that because that makes no sense. Oh, maybe that's supposed to push even harder about the family resemblance that I don't see.
Yeah, I don't know.
If Anna was blonde and short-haired and blue-eyed, then that would be a pretty big clue.
Yeah. But I really thought that Marnie was the doll. Because it's the only other blonde thing in the movie.
Yeah,
I was like,
I agree.
it's the doll.
I 100% agree. I don't fault you for that at all.
Well, I was looking for clues and there were none, actually.
Should we crank it?
Yeah, you crank it.
I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 11. And I wanted to kind of go halfway, but there's just nothing that can make it so that I was so impressed by it that it would make up for some of the weirdness in the story and the writing. And I wanted so much more out of this film. I wanted to love it. I thought it was going to a really cool place and it didn't go there. And so it just gave me like movie blue balls and I'm not into it. Yeah. But there are some cool things. So I can't give it like a super low, but I'm going to go to the halfway point and then just take it down one little notch.
Okay. See, I will boldly go where you dare not.
I can't wait to hear this.
I am giving When Marnie Was There. I'm cranking my amp to a 2 out of 11.
All right.
It was just joyless. So much of it didn't make sense, and so much of it was just randomly happening. And the ending was such a turd, and it wrapped up too quickly.
I want to know why it's not a 1 for you.
Because it was made, I guess. You know what? Good point. 1 out of 11.
I mean, it wasn't really asking for it.
Nope, you got it. 1 out of 11.
I thought there must be something. Like the script was words people might say.
Yeah, I've said I hate myself.
The animation happened.
I'm certain that asthma can be stress-induced.
Frames weren't missing.
Yeah. I just wasn't impressed at all. I mean, like you, I think that there is a much more interesting thing to be made, but they just didn't. Like any time that they're driving down the highway and they could have exited on Interestingville, they chose not to and just kept driving straight until it hit a dead end. And then they had a painter woman who was in the movie for 2 seconds earlier explain the entire plot, and then have her foster mom come in and explain, like, and apologize for everything, and everything wraps up so nicely for no reason. 1 out of 11. You convinced me to drop my score.
If that didn't have spoilers in it, I would start the pod with that before the theme song. As a tease. Yeah. And then anybody who actually loves the movie can
just check out.
Oh, God. Well, I think that wraps up our podcast on When Marnie Was There.
Yes, it does. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, the true believers over here. Follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast. If you want to write in, the Anime Movie Podcast at gmail.com. Follow us on YouTube. Just look up the Anime Movie Podcast, subscribe, and all that jazz. Rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And we'll see you next time for the next edition of Ghibli June or July.
Woo!
Woo! Woo! Oh, that wasn't it. Damn it. Hold on. Where is it? Yeah, Ghibli June/July. This really needs a fade out.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.